Welcome to Iron Sights. This podcast candidly seeks to create opportunities and deliver impact by sharing the experiences and wisdom of successful entrepreneurs and thought leaders who unapologetically aim to win in health, fitness, business, and life. I'm your host, Scott Howell. Welcome to Old School Meets New School, tradition meets innovation, and imperfection meets excellence. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So today on the show, I've got one of my favorite guys in the fitness industry, Sal Di Stefano, with me.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, man, I'm so pumped to have you here. Like I was saying before, I'm honored that you would come down and spend some time with me, and I'm so excited to kind of carve out some time to spend with you and do some cool stuff today.
Yeah, no, I tell you, we met you a little while ago, and so for the people who don't know, you had this great facility here with trainers, great equipment. We came to visit you because you're literally down the street from our studio. And, initially wanted to use the facility, if we could use the facility for some filming and whatnot. Met you, and we're cut from the same cloth. We all come from the same industry, right. Same training and understanding. And so right away we hit it off. So, I mean, anything you need, we're there.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. And you guys have always been huge advocates, and, you've come over and helped out. I mean, we've collaborated a little bit, too, in the past, which, in thinking about it, it's been a little over a year since we were supposed to be here at Red Dot doing an event which got smoked because of the whole COVID situation. Yeah. But one of my favorites was, and I think this was the time where we sort of spent the most time together. When I say that, it was sort of digitally because we were going back and forth. But we did the how to build your personal training business or sales presentation thing, which was a huge hit. Like, and people walked away from that going, oh my God, that was huge. And I know you kind of went off and did it a couple other places, but my favorite part about that was the stories we were trading kind of at the end of that. some of the shit we used to do in the in the world of sales, fitness sales, personal training sales back in the day.
I tell you what, it's just a lesson you learn in fitness, right? You want to get good at something, you practice it often, right? So you want to get good at a squat, you squat often, and this is true for anything. The reason why I think people who sell fitness in gyms are some of the best salespeople in the world is because the sales process is so fast, and you repeat it, 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day. So it's like you get so much practice. You do a year of sales in a gym, and if you take it seriously, that's like 5 years on a car lot or longer selling houses or whatever. And so I know a lot of guys and girls who did well selling memberships in their 20s now are millionaires selling, whether it's stocks or cars or homes or whatever, and they learn their skills in the gym.
Right. It was reps. I mean, we got so many reps.
So many reps.
I mean, it's, today, like in the studio environment here at Red Dot, like if we're netting 3 to 5 new members a month, we're doing a really good job.
Right.
It's not like, but there, we literally do 10, 15. If you didn't have 20 tours set up on the books.
Every day.
You were every day. You were failing, and then you had, your adjusted weekend numbers, what you're supposed to have on Saturday, on Sunday. So one way or another, you were getting reps.
Right.
And, if you were a new guy, like the rep that you got was certainly, you got less reps than the more experienced guys, right? So you valued every rep that you had, and then if you blew it, like, you were held up. Like people were like, dude, you're never getting another lead again. Like that was so easy. I
used to do announcements when my sales guys would take. So when you would take a guest, and of course the ultimate goal is to get people started. Definitely try to always get them a personal trainer because the success with training is just through the roof in terms of the client success. And then from a business standpoint, obviously the retention, right? They stay longer, they're better members. But through that process, you got to have good sales skills and good communication skills. Fitness is not a product, right? It's a promise. Mm-hmm. You come in and I'm selling you this dream. So there was constant training, constant teaching, constant reps, but we would have a lot of fun too. So someone came in and they left without buying a membership, that was called a walk.
Right.
And so when my sales guys would walk people, I'd get on the intercom and I'd say something like, hey, attention members and guests, please join Larry for his walkathon at the front desk. Stuff like that, right? The members have no idea what I'm talking about, but he knows what I'm talking about. But it's just a lot of fun. It was a great environment, and a lot of the skills and the way that we communicate on the podcast, I learned working in sales, in gyms, and working with clients, training clients. I mean, that's really what you hear if you ever listen to Mind Pump. what you hear are guys who worked in the industry for
the
a long
real
time.
life stories.
And that's it. That's just, we communicate the same stuff you'll get off Google, but we just learned how to do it in an effective way through that process.
Yeah, I think it's the 24-hour experience. So you were at 24 and I was at Bally, right? So those are like
those are rivals.
They were big time. I was just having that conversation with another guy the other day about what was going on in the industry at the time, and while 24-hour was building all these brand new beautiful clubs and just taking over, particularly like in Southern California, which I had been spending some time in. Bally was acquisitioning clubs because they couldn't go out and buy property and build new clubs fast enough. So they were buying up all these other companies and then swapping the labels, and we had like 5 different brands in that company at one point. But the bottom line is it gave us tons of opportunity to get these reps. And a lot of people now, particularly coaches, they poo-poo the big box gyms. That's, you don't want to go there. That's trash. It's just not. Talk to me about the experience that you had, and you just kind of went through that, but how valuable was that experience in terms of where you started and where the fitness industry was to where you are now? And you just kind of touched on a little bit of it, but what are some of the other things that you were exposed to or you had experience with that these are invaluable things you just couldn't have gotten anywhere else?
No, the big box gyms were the first and really the only effective, fitness, brick and mortar fitness, companies or whatever to really penetrate the average population. Now the penetration's not great, right? So what is it, 20% or something like that, right?
At best, yeah.
At best. But they were the ones to do it. No one so far has been able to surpass that. And so they did a very good job. And everything that you see other companies do really is borrowed
modeled
from.
On that, yep.
It's modeled off of these big box gyms. So they did a few things very, very well. How do we attract people who are not fitness fanatics and get them in here? How do we communicate fitness in effective ways? How do we bring them value so that they become long-term members and invest more in what we're doing? And so all these were all things that they figured out. Now, working in big box gyms, I'll tell you what, like if you want to be a trainer, you want to be a new trainer, don't waste your time, if you're brand new, working, trying to do it on your own or whatever. Go to a big box gym. They provide you with the opportunities. You have gyms packed full of potential
all
clients.
Kinds of different types of people too.
That's right, and you can learn through this process. And then if you can kick ass there, then you can go and do something small or whatever. Even private studios can be very difficult. Now you are completely different. Obviously, if you come here, you have you training these people, and you spend a lot of time with them. And I've seen that. And that makes you very valuable. But a lot of these private studios don't do that. You go in, you rent your space, you're on your own, and you don't learn the ropes. You don't really learn the process. Big box gyms will teach you that. They spend millions of dollars on the advertising, getting the traffic in there, doing all that stuff. And then if you just work in that environment, whether it's sales, training, front desk, whatever, you're just meeting a lot of people. You're in this big gym environment with lots of different people. So I can, say now, here 20-something years later, that I've maybe directly trained hundreds of people, but tens of thousands of people indirectly.
Right, like by proxy, if you will.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly. And so I've just learned so much. I wouldn't have got that experience doing it any other way.
Yeah, I guess that's the point. I mean, today, information is free. It's so easy to get. Back then, I mean, we're going back, 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, for you and I, at least, right? Mm-hmm. For a little bit longer for me even. But the point of that is there was the internet, but the amount and the access to the information in terms of improve your education, improve your depth of knowledge was still very limited then. So it did come from the reps, and it did come from being mentored by these guys or gals that had been in the business for a long time. Not just in training though, in communication, in sales, right? In operations. I mean, you go back to some of those people who've been very successful, they're millionaires now. It wasn't that they just could sell. They were damn good operators.
Yes.
Like they understood how to pick apart a P&L and strategize and find tactics to improve those things so they were more profitable, they were more productive, more efficient, and they were rewarded for that, and so that they were driven to do so.
Oh yeah, I mean, how many times have big gym companies that were successful gotten taken over by other operators who never operated fitness, thinking that it's as easy as, we have the best prices, we have the most clubs. This worked well for, Circuit City or Home Depot or Best Buy, which,
KFC,
by the way, or whatever. Yeah. And they go in there and they say, okay, we'll just give people the best prices and they'll sign up. It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
It's the people running the clubs that make them successful. I've run clubs that, and I've doubled their revenue just within the first couple months, just from the way we operated things. without changing the equipment or changing the sign or...
It was just the structure, the framework, and how you approach things.
The personnel, the people that are in there. So it makes, that big of a difference. So yeah, it was the best, it was school for me, for sure. And some of the most impactful people in the industry came from there. I mean, Mark Masteroff is the godfather of the... Yeah, absolutely. So tons to learn there. It was a lot of fun. Takes a lot of energy. You gotta. It's a grind. It's a grind, right. But it was great.
Yeah. So that said, like just looking at kind of personal training and coaching now, we're hopefully coming out the other side of this pandemic. People are starting to return to the gyms. At least in California, it's starting. We feel like the ship is kind of turning, and we're going in kind of the right direction. Outlook for aspiring coaches, right? Again, there's all this information that's available to you, and people are kind of like trying to fast track. When I say people, I mean coaches and fitness consumers. They're trying to fast track their way to success, fast track their way to the end. And again, this landscape has now been changed quite dramatically. Like these big box gyms now are going to be restricted in terms of their capacities and what they can actually do and so forth. In your mind, what's the outlook for the industry of personal training, in the next 6 to 18 months?
Yeah. So, before I get to that, you mentioned knowledge and information. I do want to say this. There's a big difference between knowledge and wisdom. Okay. So knowledge is information, and we have a lot of easily accessible information these days. Look around, right? Look at the stuff that's happening.
There's a ton of it. It's not that there's not enough of it.
I'm old enough to remember when people used to say all of our problems would be solved if everybody just had access to all the information.
Right.
Totally false. There's wisdom that wisdom is totally different, right? Knowledge is knowing how to do something. Wisdom is deciding whether you should or you shouldn't, right? So how do you get wisdom? Experience plus knowledge. And this is the value that personal trainers can provide. So you as a client or you as a person wanting to improve your health or fitness, you might be able to look up, okay, how does the body lose weight? How should I eat? What are good exercises? And that has some value. But what the trainer brings is completely different. The trainer is your guide. This is the coach. This is the person that's going to understand the challenges that you're going to go through, is going to know how to communicate that information to you in a way that's going to allow you to apply it. It's going to know how to push you and how to pull back. And I can't imagine a time where personal training is more valuable than right now. In fact, it's one of the segments of the fitness space that continues to grow. Since personal training became a thing, it's grown every single...
Never stopped.
It's never stopped growing. And I see it continuing to move in that direction. Before the pandemic, we saw the growth of more personalized, kind of small space type fitness facilities.
Right. Studios, if you will.
Right. Yeah. And that's because people are moving in that direction of, wanting more assistance and guidance. Personal training is the ultimate form of that. It's one-on-one. It doesn't get any more individualized than that. So... And then the avenues by which personal trainers now can help people out, digitally, right? You can coach people virtually.
Right.
You can text people. You can, FaceTime people. So now you have a guide with you. I mean, I remember when I was a trainer, once the person went home, that was it.
Yeah.
Now, if I really want to provide incredible service,
24/7 kind of communication platform.
Hey, John, we had a great workout. Hey, text me when you have dinner. Let me know how you feel, and I'm texting you throughout the day.
Take a picture of your meal, send it to me. Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
That's right. So it's going to keep growing. I think it's going to keep growing. I think the demand for health and fitness is only increasing, especially as we're all starting to feel the effects of isolation, starting to feel the effects of, a lot of our diets have been worse because of the stress or whatever. So I think this is a phenomenal opportunity for personal trainers.
Yeah, I think the going into kind of the studio environment, it might be a good time to kind of talk about all that experience you had in the big box. Ultimately, you moved into that environment to provide more. Let's talk maybe a little bit about kind of your experience there. What was it like to kind of own a fitness business and a personal training studio, wellness studio 15 years ago?
No, I think longer. I'm trying to think. I think I opened I first started, I believe I was 23 or 24. So that's going to be that's 18 years ago, or a little bit, about 18 years ago. And I did it because a couple of reasons. One, I saw the direction. At the time, I was managing 24-hour fitness locations. Mark Masteroff had left the company. They had gotten taken over by other investors. And I saw the direction of the company. It started to change. When I first got there, it was very much about...
It was fitness.
Right. It was very much about fitness. And then it started turning into the kind of this numbers game where... and it reminds me of the American auto industry when the people who were really passionate about cars got kicked out and it was all about the bean counters, right? This happened with 24.
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was when they brought in Home Depot basically to run the company.
Yeah, and so what they did is they looked at the bottom line and said, well, let's cut cost here. And training's not that profitable because they didn't realize the real value of training wasn't the dollars people spent directly in training, but rather
keeping them in the club.
Keeping them in the club. People who work with trainers tend to also invest in other things and services. And
by the way, it's massively profitable.
Yes.
If run correctly. And 24 had been doing that. They were making a mint.
We did, but they're like the time and energy if we just cut this and spend this and do that. And so I saw the direction. It was really frustrating. I had this manager. The last straw was it's hilarious. So here I am. I've been running gyms for a little while. Top performer, grand opening clubs. I'd set. I think we used to have this record breakers list that we used to all keep track of. And if you broke a record, you get a bonus or whatever. And there were 12 records. 8 of them were mine or people that work for me. Right. So here I am. I'm running a club.
You're at the top.
That's what I'm doing. And I had this manager who was from this new breed or whatever, and he would tell me things like, hey, Sal, when you highlight, we used to have this big planner at the front desk, right?
Yeah, the master appointment book.
Yes, for trainers or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, highlight,
in pink, yes, in
people
green.
Who show up, people who no show, and whatever. And so I see my front desk doing this, and the whole page is wet because they're coloring it with, this... highlighters, and said we're buying new highlighters. I'm like, you know what, this looks terrible. Just underline what the highlighters. No need to color the whole page. It's ridiculous. Well, anyway, he comes in and he sees it and he sits it down in front of me. And we were like, I don't remember that day we were crushing or whatever. So he sits me down and he puts it in front of me. He goes, do you see a problem with this? And I'm like, I don't know. I think we're like at 10 grand right now at the front.
Look at the scoreboard.
Yeah. And he goes, I told you specifically to fill this all. Anyway, so he tried to write me up. I bounced. So that was like the last straw. So I left, and then I started a wellness studio.
Right.
And what I tried to do was really provide as much quality service as possible in the health and wellness kind of sphere, right? So I'm the trainer. I had space for a few other trainers. I wanted massage therapy in there. I wanted someone who worked with nutrition, someone who did gut testing and hormone testing. This was before it became a
nobody was talking about it then.
Acupuncture. Yeah. And so that's what we provided, and we did a phenomenal job. Our clients got phenomenal results. It was very difficult to yield a massive profit. Running small facilities can be very difficult, but we succeeded. We did well for a long time. And during that period of time, I really learned a tremendous amount about health. At that point, I was mainly a fitness guy. By the time I sold it, I was a wellness guy.
Right. And so I want to get into that a little bit, kind of how you maybe move that direction. But the challenges and opportunities then are definitely probably different than the challenge and opportunities now. I mean, the grind of being a fitness entrepreneur and opening your own studio and having your own studio and having to drive clients through the door and, sell and manage. We didn't have the same, let's just say, technology. There wasn't as much. We were really, at that time, if you were opening one of these businesses, you're kind of pioneering it. Yeah. Because most personal training was happening in these bigger boxes. So you had to have gone through like, hey, how do I do? You basically have to kind of invent everything yourself, right on down to the waiver that's sitting on your counter.
Dude, 2 things I did. I went to every small business in my area and gave free personal training to the owners to come train with me, knowing that they'd refer people. I set up body fat testing booths in the front of Whole Foods, Nob Hill, Bank of America, test people's body fat, book appointments, and that was it. You literally had to go out.
It's guerrilla. That's guerrilla stuff.
And it worked, but I know a lot of people are afraid of that, but it worked. And I'll be honest with you, it still works today. Now, technology, if you combine it with that, that's the best combination, but it still works. It's just you got to get out there and get in people's faces a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And now you can do that, but you see people doing it digitally through places like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all these other places where they're putting on kind of a show, which is cool, but really it's like a highlight reel, right? And you're showing, the trainer on the best day that's been rehearsed and, all these other things, and they're at their best and they look their best. But that wasn't the case. I mean, you had to literally do this every day and you had to be prepared for anything. Yes, I mean, somebody's calling you out, right? Yeah. Somebody's picking on you. Somebody's like heckling you from the sideline or whatever every single time you're doing this. that doesn't exist anymore. Or if it does, you can just cancel somebody or unfollow.
No, I mean, when you're
off.
doing free body fat tests and scheduling free goal assessments from there, you're going to get, 20 people telling you no before you get the one person that might be interested.
The rejection.
Yeah. So
you're dealing with that.
You just got to be okay with that. I mean, I'd walk into Starbucks and talk to people about working. You know how hard it is? Oh, you know this, but people watching, you know how hard it is to just go up to someone cold and talk to them about personal training. How do I bring up fitness without this person feeling offended? Like, you're going to go up to someone and be like, hey, would you like to work out? I'm like, excuse me? What do you mean that? Do I need? So what I would do is I would go up to people and I'd say, hey, where do you work out? Because that comes across totally different. Like, oh, he thinks I work out. Well, actually, I don't work out right now. Oh, you don't? And then I would get into it. But you'd have to do that. You'd have to go out and talk to people.
The approaches were way different. Yeah.
Yes.
Like, and whether you're doing that outside the gym or inside the gym, there was always techniques, and you kind of had 5 in your back pocket. Like, when they were working out, it might be like, well, I got 5 alternative exercises I give them to probably hit, the same muscle groups that they're trying to hit. Let me see if I can get in that way.
That's right.
Or, the walkway technique, just giving somebody a compliment and something completely like what you just did there, which was, hey, it looks like you're in shape. Looks good.
Yeah,
just keep going. Or, hey, nice shoes. I love those things. And you work, and somebody's doing that set arm curls.
Here's the deal. When you look at the fitness space, I would say total, like the whole fitness diet and diet space and diet pills and gyms, the whole thing, right? I can safely say a good 90% of the stuff that's out there is promoting the wrong stuff, isn't really helping people. And I think people know this by now, right? Most of the diet pills that are out there, diet books, most of the...
we like to think that most people know this.
Yeah. Well, they fall for it. But if you really sit someone down and be like, do you really think...
Let's be rational.
Yeah, I think people would say, by now, they're starting to figure out that it doesn't work. So here I am, and I'm trying to do it the right way. Like, lose 30 pounds, probably going to take you a year, and you're going to have to do some hard work, and it's a slow process, whatever. I'm competing with the... lose 30 pounds in 15 days, drink this shake and, run on the treadmill type of guy. How am I going to beat that person? I got to outsell them. So I got to be a better communicator. I got to have, more charisma,
more
better
content,
presentation. That's it. And so I got to beat them at their own game with the right information, which is even more challenging. And so if you can do that, well, now you become a master.
Right. And you're good. But if you're, that second you slip up, the second you try to sink to that level, that's the quickest way to get to the bottom.
Totally.
And
those are the guys that fail in fitness long term.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, well, check back in with me in about 3 years, and let's kind of see where you're at.
They won't be there.
Right? Yeah. Versus the other people that were grinding and whatever, they're still doing and able to make a living or, have a comfortable life.
That's right.
Doing the thing they love and, we'll get into that a a little bit.
Totally.
Nobody gets into personal training to be a millionaire.
No.
And if you do, you're so disillusioned.
You ain't gonna last.
Yeah, you're so disillusioned. So, it's interesting. So you're running your own business, and there's a lot that goes into running your own business. A lot of stress, right? There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of liability. You're falling down on your face. There's nobody there to pick you up but yourself. When you're working for the big box or somebody else, you have, there's limited liability, right? But when you're owning your own business, there isn't, and that can create, issues. And so for a lot of trainers, a lot of coaches, and I was one of those guys, what do you do to fill the time? What do you do to stress relief? Well, you do the thing, which is work out, right?
Yeah.
And you continue to do that. And there's always a quest to be better, be stronger, be faster. There's an aesthetic piece to that. And then there's also the living, wanting to be a walking example of the things you're doing. So I wanted to kind of get into this with you because I've listened to many, many, many episodes, and there's like over 1,500 of them. I haven't listened to all of them, I'll be honest. But the Mind Pump podcast, and you get to hear and really learn about you and your co-hosts in that on your program. And obviously we've had our collaborations and our meetings and stuff. But there's pieces of this that I don't think I've really heard with regard to you. And one of those things was the challenges you had with your own health, sort of at the peak of your career, and you're doing really well. You got your own business; it's flourishing. You said I started out as a fitness coach, and I turned into more of a health and wellness guy at the end. And there were some challenges, there were some struggles there, and I know you've referenced that as maybe thinking that you may have had an autoimmune issue at one point. And I want to bring this up because I have a very similar story, and I know how I got there, and I'm just curious to hear how you got there. Like, tell us about this.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually a very important story to me. It made me who I am today. But fitness is one segment of the health sphere, right? So health encompasses a lot of things. There's spiritual health, there's the way that you are with your finances, that also the relationships that you have, your sleep and digestion, all these things are within health. Now, I was a fitness person, and I thought that was health. That was it. It was all about fitness. Also, it originally started, my original, fitness journey started from a place of insecurity. I was a skinny kid growing up. All I wanted to do was build muscle. I just wanted to put on muscle mass. And so I did everything I possibly could in order to do that, including taking, designer steroid supplements, which they would sell over the counter in the early 2000s.
Easy to get.
Things that, just weren't good for my health. And I kind of built up this big muscular, for myself, body and this armor. And I knew working out, I knew macros, I knew calories, and that was about it. And I pushed my body very hard, harder than I probably should at times. And I fed it in ways that weren't healthy. They would definitely help with performance, but not necessarily my health.
Longevity, yeah.
Right. So right in my early 30s, my body started to kind of take a turn, and I started to develop really, really bad gut health issues. And they got so bad that within a 30-day period, I lost close to 15 pounds. So for a guy like me who was all into lifting weights and working out, and now I'm losing 15 pounds, I'm not strong, I feel terrible. My shield is gone, my armor's gone, and I'm confused because I thought I was healthy. I'm eating chicken breasts, I'm eating rice, I'm eating vegetables, I'm eating whole wheat toast, I'm eating, what is going on here? Why is my body failing?
It's rebelling, right?
Yeah, and I went to the doctors, and they couldn't figure out what was going on with me, and I thought maybe, my God, am I developing, Crohn's disease, or am I developing some kind of an autoimmune issue? Well, at this time, I owned my wellness facility. Now, at the very least, and I was definitely ignorant in many ways around fitness, but at the very, very least, I can say that at least I was open-minded enough to know that there was value in the other segments of health. And I knew this from a business standpoint. I could see that my clients benefited from acupuncture, massage therapy, that my clients could benefit from getting gut tests and hormone tests and all that stuff. And so here I was, couldn't figure out the hell was wrong with myself. And finally, I took two of my team members. One was the gut health specialist who also did hormone testing. The other one was a massage therapist. Okay. And I sat them down and I said, I can't figure this out. I give up. I need you guys to help me. I'll do whatever you guys tell me. And they said, all right, let's begin. So I did gut testing and food intolerance testing, and I started meditating, I modified my workouts completely. And I knew that the only way for me to fix my health was to completely ignore and really give up on the aesthetic pursuits. I couldn't do both at the time. It was all or nothing, right? So I stopped with the aesthetic stuff, and I said, I don't care how I look, I don't care how muscular I am, I don't care how lean I am, I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm just gonna focus on my health. I even stopped really paying attention to the mirror in order to do this. And so through this process, and to kind of make a long story short, I eliminated foods that I had identified that I had intolerances to. I started implementing cannabinoids because they're anti-inflammatory effect, and they did help me quite a bit. I would have high CBD cannabis at the time, which was kind of hard to find, but I found
at the time,
it.
Yeah, that was kind of unheard of.
Yeah, and this was all just researching and talking to, again, these people that I worked with. I started focusing on my sleep. I changed my workouts. I dropped my intensity. I stopped taking lots of supplements. And over the course of a year, my health dramatically improved slowly over time. Well, about a year later, and during this period, my body was very reactive, right? So I would I'd have like some food that might have some soy sauce on it, and I would have this crazy reaction. And
you didn't know.
I didn't know soy sauce had gluten in it, right? So little by little, I'm learning about how reactive the body can be, and what I can and can't eat and all that stuff. And I got a lot better. Well, at the end of that year, we all had kind of this team kind of get together, and we were in the pool, swimming, whatever. I remember I went to use the restroom, and I saw in this bathroom, this was my friend's bathroom, they had a few mirrors, and I saw a reflection of myself. And for a split second, I didn't know I was looking at myself. And so I actually looked at myself objectively, and I took a double take, and then I looked in the mirror, and this was the first time I actually allowed myself to look at myself aesthetically. And I couldn't believe that I looked better than I'd ever looked. And I had this crazy epiphany where I realized, man, for about a year, I have been completely focused on my health. I stopped focusing entirely on aesthetics, on building muscle and getting shredded, on looking good. and I focused entirely on health, and the result of that was better aesthetics. And again, that really shaped the voice that I have now on the podcast. And this is the way I communicate it to people now, because I know there's people listening who was like I was. And I mean, had you told me this in the wrong way before my health rebelled on me, I wouldn't have listened to you. Like if you told me, hey, Sal, you should focus on your health. One in ear, in one ear, out the other. But if you said to me, if you chase health, you'll actually look better, I might have listened. You would have heard it differently. And that's how I sell it now. And it helps. It helps a lot because I know people still just hyper-focused on how they look. If you just focus on that, eventually, and this is true for everybody, eventually your health will start to suffer. When your health suffers, so does your appearance and your looks. If you focus on your health, you're going to get a great deal of both. And you'll get that longevity with it to go along with it. And we can go into detail as to why, but if you're always chasing appearance, the decisions you make tend to be the wrong ones. You tend to overtrain. You tend to punish yourself. You overreach. With exercise. You tend to over-diet or overeat. You just don't treat yourself very well when it's all about appearance. But when you're focusing on health, if you're doing it in a real way, you can't help but treat yourself well. And of course, the result of that is you look great. Yeah, so the irony of this is you'd spend a lifetime at this point, which was, not so long, in the big scheme of things, but a good portion of your life chasing health, right? And also chasing success. But you're really not chasing health, you're chasing aesthetics, you're chasing maybe some performance. Yes. I want to be stronger, and I want to look better than the other guy or whatever the case. And at the end of the day, you wind up less healthy or unhealthy. And there's a tipping point. There's a tipping point where your gut's rebelling, and all of a sudden you're like, man, I keep putting this in me and I feel like shit. I'm not sleeping, right? Yeah, well, for some people it's, it could be hormonal. I know back in the day we used to call it adrenal fatigue. Now they call it HTPA, axis dysfunction. That can show up. It's more common in women. Injuries is the most common. And now, to be quite honest with you, Scott, if I go back and I think back, my body was telling me up until that point. I would see signs, and like what? Like what? I'd have some gut issues there, or I get a little hyperreactive over here, or I wouldn't feel so good for a week, but then I'd feel better. And if you ignore your body every time your body's talking to you, it just gets louder. Right. And so, I've had friends where they ignore a minor pain in their back or a little bit of hip, and next thing you know, hip replacement surgery, or I slipped a disc or something real bad. So eventually your body will win. Right. If you ignore it, it will win. So pay attention to it. So it's interesting, like the signals that you're hearing, the things that are just right there in front of your face. What about like your relationships? At this point in life, like is your poor health that you're ignoring, right? Is it impacting your relationships? And if so, how? Oh, absolutely. You don't typically just have poor health in one place. Now, I worked out and I dieted, but I wasn't healthy about it. And it was like that in other aspects of my life. I was hyper-focused on work, success, the bottom line, expanding, growing, all that kind of stuff at the sacrifice of my family, at the sacrifice of the relationship with, at the time, now my ex-wife, but at the time my wife. I missed out on a lot of things with my kids when they were really young. Now, what did it take me, what happened that taught me that lesson? Well, I got a divorce, right. So it's kind of like, the way my body rebelled to teach me about, wellness and the health in a physical sense, that taught me in the relationship sense, which now I don't take those same, I don't make those same sacrifices. Right. It's just not worth it. But yeah, I had to learn that lesson the hard way. I was so focused. It was like bell to bell all the time, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. And that was it. That was what I did. Didn't put my kids to bed. I might see them on the weekends sometimes. Didn't spend time with my wife, and it was just laser focused the whole time. You're going to suffer. You're going to suffer in a big way. And did I accomplish financial success? I did. At what cost? At what cost? And here's the irony. I'm far more financially successful now with Mind Pump, and I work probably a fraction of the time. I'm more effective. While you're working, yeah. Much more effective, but I don't work nearly as many hours as I used to, and yet here we are. So almost a very similar lesson, right? Yeah, it's not an uncommon tale, man. I mean, especially here. I mean, here we're in San Jose in the Silicon Valley. I mean, we're in the heart of
you push all the time. I mean, I don't know, the pandemic has now kept people at home instead of going to the office. In most cases, when I talk to our members and our clients, they're working more than they ever have because they're spending less time commuting, which wasn't healthy for them probably either. They're spending a lot of time in the car. There's more of a demand. They're leashed by the cell phone or by the computer, and they're actually more accessible maybe than they were before. Financially, hugely successful. Right. I mean, we're in some of the richest soil in the United States of America, and in the world, if you really look at it. Yet people continually are trading their health for success, and they come to us, and a lot of times that's what we see at Red Dot Fitness. I mean, that's really our target market is that 32 to 55, executive. Yeah. And they're coming in, they're like, it doesn't matter how much I diet, doesn't matter how much I work out. I still can't seem to lose weight. I'm hurting. I'm injured. I can't sleep. I know this is bad for me. So they're aware. They're finally aware. They've hit some kind of a tipping point. But all this wealth and quote unquote success that they've had has been at the cost.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I definitely think that there's, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that there's definitely a time and a place to test yourself.
1,000%.
See how far you can go.
1,000%.
If you're young and you don't have kids and want to see what you're made of, then definitely do that. But if you get lost in it, you're gonna suffer. And I did. I got lost in it. I went through that period of doing it before I had kids, and I should have learned that now other things are probably more important. But I didn't. I stayed in that gear, and I had to pay the price. And I think that's an important lesson.
And I think that the thing I want to kind of maybe circle back to a little bit is, we're going back in time a little bit, and there was maybe a little less information about these things. And you alluded to that gut health was not, on the radar really yet.
Oh yeah.
So you're starting to notice these symptoms and these signs, and you're not. Let's just say you're not right. And this is the point I want to, I want everybody that's listening. If you're in your mid 30s right now, and you're constantly grouchy, you're not sleeping. Doesn't seem to matter how much you diet, you can't. I don't. This shouldn't be the only reason for dieting, but you're dieting, you're restricting your calories, and you can't seem to lose weight, and you're just working out more than ever, and you got no libido, right? And your relationships suck, and something's wrong. Like something's wrong. Like this isn't right. It doesn't need to be like this. You don't need to suffer. And so for you, there were some tipping points there that finally sent you to, I got to make a change. And you had a team sitting in front of you that you finally kind of just like, guys, I need your help. Like, I need some direction here. The challenge that we find with so many of our clients is they get to us finally, but they've gone through this pathway that's been really frustrating. Yep. And it hasn't really helped them much. It's only in some cases made it worse. They've, the allopathic medicine. So they go to see, I'm having gut issues, and they give them, there's some medication that's coming out, and then later down the line they wind up with a skin issue. So they go see their doctor again, and the doctor says, well, I'm going to send you to a dermatologist, and the dermatologist says, oh, you got some stuff going on your skin there, I'm going to give you a cream. Without talking to the other doctor. Nobody's asking them about what's your diet like, what's your exercise routine, what's your stress profile like. So different. And so by the time they get to us, they can't make sense of it. They just spent a lot of time, and they're even further down the path. I mean, was that your experience?
Yeah. Human nature is it's easier to add things than it is to take things away. So if you take someone that is, like you said, you painted the picture, right? Low libido, not sleeping well, I'm working out and dieting. Why the hell isn't my body responding? And what they want to hear, or at least what they tend to receive better, is to add something. You got to work out harder. Right. That makes sense. You got to diet harder. That makes sense. Take this new supplement. That makes sense. But the reality is it's often taking things away. You're working too much. Your workouts are too hard. You need to eat more.
Less is more. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a tough thing to communicate. You have to surrender to it. That's what I had to do. Now I got pushed to that point, but I finally surrendered and said to them, "I'll do whatever you say because I'm lost. I don't know what to do." But I mean, the example you paint really is, again, it's you're fighting your body. You will lose. If your body doesn't want to build muscle, good luck trying to get it to build muscle. If your body doesn't want to lose fat, good luck trying to get your body to lose fat. If your hormones are not balanced, your relationships are bad, all these things, good luck trying to progress anywhere. So sometimes what it takes is humility to say, okay, I'm a hammer. Everything I see is a nail. So let me ask somebody else. And if you're that executive, That high performance executive,
powering through.
That's exactly what they do, right? They come in. I know it.
You've been there. You did it.
They come in here, and what do they want to do? But I want to do the harder workouts. But I want to be pushed harder. And you're like, no, actually,
pump the brakes, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pump the brakes. We get it. You're a leader in your own environment, but let us help you.
That's right.
You've come here. I know you want all the answers right now. I know you may think you have them. I mean, it's fitness. How tough can it be, right? I can research this on the Google, right? I look this up, and there's all my answers for me. Clearly, that's not working. So yeah, just chill for a second. You've already you alluded to how it's influenced you. Mm-hmm. It's influenced you who you are today. It's certainly influenced how you handle yourself in business and what Mind Pump is sort of all about. I guess such a valuable thing for a coach to go through, to then be able to relate to clients and relate to these examples that we're bringing up. And it's happening later in life. I mean, most coaches start in their very early 20s or whatever, or in their earlier in life, fitness is a passion. They think it's cool, that they can maybe go help people, and they turn it into, some type of a career, at least try to make a run at it. That's my question is for you. How valuable is it, or is it necessary? Maybe this is the right way to phrase this. Is it necessary for a coach to go through an experience like that to really ultimately be successful down the line and impact a client or the industry or the community in a meaningful way? Do they need to do this? Is this something they have to do, or can they get this stuff otherwise?
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're a coach or trainer in the space, you really have a passion for it, and you do it long enough, you're going to.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
Yeah, it's not a question of
if. Right.
Yeah, you're gonna go through your own growth process. Ultimately, that's what fitness is all about. And let's be honest, most of us who get into the fitness space or fall in love with fitness, the roots of it were probably something within ourselves that we wanted to improve.
Right.
We didn't feel good about ourselves. By the way, this is all very important stuff to communicate to people and clients. When your client is looking at you, Mr. or Mrs. Fit trainer, they feel like they don't relate to you, but the reality is you relate to them better than they realize. They just don't know it. Tell them those stories. Let them know about your struggles. But if you stick to this long enough, you're going to experience it. It might take 10 years, but you're going to go through this process. So I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, right. So this when for you, as you're coming out the other side of it, was this the catalyst? I mean, with regard to Mind Pump and moving away from the business, and I guess the more specific question I have for you, when did you decide to exit the personal training studio?
Okay, so I had a lot of fun doing it. I loved it, but probably the last, I'd say 3 to 4 years, I knew that there was time to do something else, time to reach more people. Didn't know it was a podcast that I was going to do, but I knew that there was something I wanted to do. But, fast forward, I meet Doug, who's our producer, Doug Eggy.
Right.
He becomes my client. Doug had internet marketing experience. And after training him, and he had back pain, all this stuff. And anyway, make a long story short, got great results, loved my approach. And he comes to me and says, Sal, if you ever come up with something that you want to market online, let me know. I'll put it together for you because I love the way you communicate this stuff. And so I did. I came up with a program. We pieced it together. And at the time, I had known of Adam Schaefer, who's one of my co-hosts. And I also knew that he was a high performer in the fitness space, and I wanted his opinion. We were talking through social media, just kind of loosely. So I said, hey, I'd like to send you some stuff. I'd love your opinion.
Right.
Well, that prompted us to getting on the phone, and then we decided to meet. Now, when we met and we talked about what we wanted to do, we knew it was a podcast because it was long form. So fitness, when you train people, one of the reasons why a trainer's so valuable is because it's one-on-one, and if you work with them long enough, eventually you learn the right way to do things, and it's a long conversation. I could tell you how to lose weight, but to really get you there, it's an ongoing conversation.
Process,
yeah, it's not just it's not an Instagram post or even a blog. It's a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. Podcasts allow for that, right? They're long form, discussion, conversation. It was really the best way to communicate how we wanted to communicate what we wanted to talk about. Also, podcasting had a very low barrier to enter. Mm-hmm. We weren't beholden to corporate sponsors, so I didn't have to sell some, garbage product or whatever just so I could,
you didn't have to filter it either.
I didn't have to do anything. We could be as honest in whatever we want, and that's what we planned on doing. And then as far as what we communicated, I mean, I remember this like it was yesterday. We were sitting down, And it was Adam and Justin, and we were sitting there talking about what we wanted the podcast to do. And I remember I brought this up. I said, and they all agreed, because they've been trainers as long as I have. And I think there's, if you seek the truth at the same, long enough, you all come to the same conclusion. And I said, in the fitness space, we have fitness performance, aesthetics, looking good, all that stuff. You have that segment. And then you have the wellness segment. And at the time, we're talking about maybe 8 years ago. At the time, the wellness segment was just starting to kind of grow, but it was not fitness performance.
You're talking more like mind, body, spirit.
Yes, it was like yoga. It was healthy, organic,
meditation,
crunchy. Right over here was like pre-workouts, creatine, fat burners, cardio, lifting weights. Right. And I said, guys, these two spaces are going to merge,
collide,
because they're both
they're saying the same thing, they're just doing it in a different way,
and they're both very valuable. And the truths over here will benefit this one, and vice versa. And this is where you're going to find the truth. This is where I found all my clients, and they both totally agreed. And so we said, let's make a podcast where we talk about all this stuff. Now we look like meatheads and we sound like whatever, but let's talk about wellness in this way, the same way we talk to our clients. And they loved it, and that was really the beginning of Mind Pump. So you talk about what happened to me and my transition. Again, that's really the voice that I have on the show.
So was that kind of serendipitous? I mean, what was there an exit strategy at all, or did this just this was like magic happened, and through the communication and then this meeting with the four of you, and then the next thing you know, we're where we're at today?
Yeah, we have that first meeting recorded. I know Katrina, this is Adam's wife. She hit record on an iPad, so we have that conversation. The chemistry was there for sure. That's whatever you want to call it, XFactor, whatever. Right. We sat down and we talked for, 3 hours, 4 hours, just nonstop about the fitness industry, how we would want this podcast to come across, how we would communicate fat loss and performance, and what we're going to say about supplements, and what we're going to say about controversial topics. And we want it to be raw and unfiltered because we know that's how we entertained our clients, and that's why they kept coming back.
Right.
And so we had this great conversation. It was fire right out the gates. But of course, we had families to take care of and all that stuff. So we decided, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to meet once or twice a week, record 3 or 4 episodes, and put them up, and let's see what happens. And this was one of my favorite moments in Mind Pump. We put up the episodes. I think we dropped 5 or something initially. And I remember I was training my clients. I still have my wellness studio, and I'm training my client, and my phone buzzes, and I look, it's Adam, and I dismiss the call because I'm with the client, and then it buzzes again, Adam again, dismiss, and then the third time, I'm like, shit.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
So I say, hold on one second. So I go outside. I'm like, what's up, dude? I'm training a client. He goes, go on iTunes, go on the new and notable right now. So I'm like, I scroll, and there we were.
Top. Yeah.
We were #1 in the new podcast, and I was like, oh man, I think we got something there. And it just grew from there. And about a year later, we all decided to quit our jobs, and we all invested, I think it was a total of $4,000 into mine, was $1,000 each. Mm-hmm. And that was it. The rest is history.
Yeah, I think that is a part of the story that, it's really easy to look at all the successes you guys had. And I've heard you all tell it. I've heard Adam tell it. I've heard Justin tell it about, look, it was really about providing value. It was really about educating and empowering people to make great decisions or better decisions about their health and fitness. And we had our own way of doing that. And we talked about the importance of communication and so forth, coming out the other end of this thing. The important thing, I think one of the most important or hard-hitting things that, people that are out there now, the young, fitness entrepreneur period, who's looking to do something or move into the podcast space, which is wide open right now. And so
it still is.
Yeah, it's in its infancy. I don't know if you agree with that.
I do.
We're right at the beginning. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened, current events with the podcast platforms with Apple and stuff. But the point of that is there was a year. It was a year. How many podcasts did you guys lay down in that year?
Oh, it was five a week.
5 days a week.
Yeah, five a week. Right. We were dropping podcasts. Okay, so you're an entrepreneur, Tor, so you understand this. Entrepreneurs are people who are real, who just take naturally to entrepreneurship. Because I don't want to say that not everybody could become an entrepreneur. I think that there's potential in most people, but those of us who we're born to do it, we're unemployable. And what I mean by that is not that I can't work for someone. I can, and I've done it. But if I do, I want to break free.
You're always thinking of the next thing.
Yeah, right? It's like entrepreneur is the only person who will work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week.
And we're mavericks, man.
Yeah. So all of us are like that, right? So Adam, Justin, myself, and Doug, we're all kind of like that. Mm-hmm. Taking risks is a part of the whole ball game. We were strategic about it because we had families to support, but when it was time to pull the plug, it was like, let's do this. And here's the bottom line: you have to have confidence in yourself. Not that whatever you're doing is going to succeed. Of course, you're going to have confidence in that, but the ultimate confidence needs to be that even if it fails, I'm going to be okay. If this fails, I can get a job selling this, or I could get a job over there, and I'll take care of myself long enough to get back on my feet to start again and try it all over again. Right. So we all had that attitude. So
you're going all in. But you're going all in at the same time. Like yes. I'm going to do this. It's burn the lifeboats. We're doing this. Like we're doing it. And if the ship goes down, well, then I guess I'm swimming, and I'll figure it out, but I'll swim to the next boat.
It's jumping out of the plane and making a parachute.
On the way down.
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah, and that's so interesting, and it's such a fascinating story. And, in terms of all the growth that you had at 24, then you move on, you open your own business, and all the personal and professional growth that you had there, can you, I don't know, overview or even outline the amount of growth personally and professionally you've had just in the last, has it been 8 years? It hasn't been 8 years.
No, that's when we started the conversation, right? 7 years ago. So it's been about 6 years we've been on air.
Yeah. So talk about like the amount of growth you've had as a human being and as a professional.
I mean, the last 6 years I've grown. I mean, I think you grow throughout your whole life, obviously, but the last 6 years has been like intense growth, right? So one of the reasons why is I'm on a podcast that we record every single day. I'm talking to two other gentlemen, both very smart, both very emotionally intelligent men, right. And we have very open, deep conversations. We challenge ourselves to do that. So it's like you're going to grow because
you're in that environment.
Yeah, right. We're talking all the time.
You're in that environment.
We all want to get better all the time. So you're listening to yourself on the podcast, you're watching, you're growing through that. You have to be objective. You have to be growth minded. Otherwise you'll cringe. I mean, Everybody's had that experience where you hear your voice on a recorder and you go, I can't stand my voice. Like imagine now watching yourself and doing all that. So there's growth in that. Of course, I had some personal stuff happen. I got divorced on the podcast. I mean, it was when we started Mind Pump is when I went through my divorce. And I was married for 15 years. And that was a massive period of growth. I had to what did I do that contributed to this?
Right.
And
taking personal accountability.
And I had to come to some I wasn't the best father. I wasn't the best husband. How can I do those things? I want to build a relationship with my kids. How do I make this the best divorce I possibly can make? How do I make this the best? Right. Absolutely. And I had my partners there the whole time. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say the last 6 years has been like intense growth, but it's been fun.
So that's interesting. So you talk about that sort of from a personal perspective, and that's a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want better relationships with your kids. You want better life for them. You want a better life for yourself. So some fundamental things have to change there in order to get there. How about for Mind Pump from the beginning till now, and the growth that's happened there? Have any of the fundamentals changed from the day you started to now? And if so, what are they?
I would say the core is the same. We want to do the same thing. We want to bring people honest, true, valuable information, and we want to do it in an effective way. Now, how we do it has changed. I mean, we still use a podcast. We still use media, but we had zero media experience when we started. We literally, what you heard were three very experienced personal trainers who had great chemistry with each other. Right. That's what you heard. So it sounded like you were in the locker room. Yeah. So and I dare anybody to go back and listen to those early episodes.
Oh, I remember. It was a little rough.
Oh, they're rough.
The dick and fart jokes ran long. Man.
Oh, it was worse than that. So we didn't need to cover up. But it was. I mean, we went. Like I said, no experience in media. What you hear now is 6 years of media experience, which still is not a lot, but it's enough where you could see
it's refined.
It's much more refined than it used to be. I think we're going to continue to get much better. We're much more comfortable on the mics. I mean, we used to, when we would start the podcast, looking back, I don't think we realized that we were nervous. I think we were excited, but we would drink a little bit, loosen up, smoke a joint a little bit, to loosen up, and we don't do that anymore. And at one point, we actually thought it made us better. Yeah, it's a good idea. And then you listen to podcasts, you're like, no, dude, we sound like shit.
Never again.
Yeah, I think we're just nervous, right? We cursed a lot more on those early podcasts. So we're better at the media side of the business. But at the core is exactly the same. We're the same exact. We're trainers. This is what we are. We have a media company, but we're trainers. That's not going to change.
Is it hard?
What?
I mean, you four guys have been together for a long time now.
Oh,
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, is it hard to go in there every day and have these conversations? I mean, I always want to know what's kind of going on behind the scenes, and we've had a little bit of insight to that maybe a little bit lately, from a comedic kind of perspective. And you guys razz one another and whatever, but I mean, how tough is it to go to work every day with your business partners and do it every single day? You
know what? It's, I guess there's challenges for sure, but it's so enjoyable, Scott. I mean, I've never had so much fun in my entire life. I've never felt so fulfilled with work like I do now. Challenging? Absolutely. You got, 4 alpha leaders with who have the ideas.
There's got to be fireworks there sometimes, man.
There often is fireworks, and especially between Adam and I, we're the most vocal. So you'll see Adam and I, quite a bit, and Justin and Doug are much more measured. And
it's a pay-per-view shit right there.
Oh, it's great. I'll never forget this. I don't remember what it was that happened, but it was one of the bigger, like one of the first bigger arguments that Adam and I got into. It was huge yelling match, and I don't remember what it was that we were debating over, back and forth, and Doug and Justin are chiming in a little bit, and we're just yelling and whatever. And I, whatever, we're done, and I left to go home, and I sent him a text, and I said, hey, I just want you to know, I know obviously we had a different of opinion, we're yelling at each other, but I respect the hell out of you, and I love this.
Right.
And he called me up, and he's like, man, he goes, that right there is why I love doing what I do. And it's true. And that's how it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we can argue, debate. I could completely disagree with whatever decision one of them, but if we all agree, because there's 4 of us, right? If a majority of us agree to move in a direction, even if it's in a direction that I completely disagree with, if that's the direction we're going, I'm on the team.
Right.
Let's do this. I'll take the loss or the win regardless. And so we all have that attitude. So there's no we don't take things personal in that way. Do we get mad at each other, frustrated all the time? But I lucked out with the partners that I found for sure.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to know because you spend a long enough time in a situation with your business partner. There's highs and lows, and it's good to know that I'm normal.
Totally. And it's like being married.
Yeah,
it's no different. No different.
It's exactly the same, right? Except you're actually
we're not sexually attracted to each other. It makes it even harder.
Well, but you're in the same room. You spend more time, at work. Maybe not now. I mean, you're finding a little bit more balance, but oftentimes you spend more time with your business partner than you do with your family, or with your spouse or significant other, whatever it happens.
Oh my God! I mean, we talk to each other. We sit there and have conversations for hours every day. It's like I talk to these guys more than I talk to my wife.
So, just kind of moving forward, we talked about growth and being challenged and, always looking for a new challenge and pushing forward. So, I mean, over the years, there's been, the challenge that you faced as a young coach and a manager and, a leader in leadership and then owning your own business. And then, moving into the podcast and all the things that have happened, you guys have constantly pushed the envelope, and you personally have constantly pushed the envelope. I mean, so for those of you who don't know, I mean, Mind Pump, the people that are listening, Mind Pump is one of the top 10 fitness and health podcasts in the world, right? I mean, if you go on there, it's top 10. There's over 1,500 episodes. You guys are over 100 countries, or something like that. It's like 1 million downloads, a month kind of thing.
I think we're hitting 2.5 to 3.
It's crazy. I mean, those are insane numbers, especially for somebody that's trying to break into the podcast space right now. To think what you guys have gotten accomplished there along the way, and you did allude to this before, and this is how you and Adam kind of connected, or the impetus for the connection was the MAPS programming, right? And you're kind of the pioneer on that. It's my understanding in terms of writing that. And then there's been so many programs that have been written, on the MAPS platform since. And recently, for those of you that are watching, Sal's got a new book coming out. It's called The Resistance Training Revolution. It's the no cardio way to burn fat and age-proof your body in only 60 minutes a week. I want to dig into this thing.
Okay.
So Sal brought me a hardback copy. I feel honored. I actually have. I'm waiting for it to come out on Audible. I've already reserved my copy and whatever else, and apparently it's Sal narrating. So I'm a copy here. I'll read it and then listen.
Thanks.
But yeah, man, let's talk about the book. Okay. The premise, obviously is the no cardio way to burn fat and age-proof your body.
By the way, that's okay. So this part right here is that the publisher was like, we fought.
You have to put that.
Yeah, because he's like, nobody's gonna know. And I'm like, come on, man, that sounds like I'm selling some bullshit. Yeah. So, but I mean, in the book, I do give people a very basic, easy resistance training routine that can take as little as that. Yeah. But yeah, that was the part. It's funny. We were going back.
You got to sell it.
And
right?
they're like, we need people to see what it is and whatever. So
that's why you get a publisher.
Yeah, so that was the deal with that.
That's why you get a publisher. All right. Well, so that answers a lot of questions that I needed to know because those are bold statements. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so getting into that a little bit, like, don't elaborate now, but I have questions about the no cardio way. Yeah. Right. And and certainly the age proofing. What does that mean? So again, this may be a publisher speak here. Yeah. But talk to me about what age proofing means to you.
Okay, so obviously the term age proofing, if we take it literally, that's impossible, right? Everybody ages. If you're lucky and blessed enough to age, everybody goes through that process. But if we examine the common challenges, physical challenges and even mental challenges that accompany aging, we can say, cognitive decline, that becomes much more common as we get older. So it could look like dementia, Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. Obesity starts to become more of a problem. Definitely muscle and loss and weakness, that becomes a problem. So, and follows along with loss of mobility. Hormone issues start to become more of an issue.
Down-regulating of some, up-regulating of others.
Yeah, so testosterone levels in men that drop, and women, estrogen, progesterone start to change. Osteopenia, osteoporosis. All the issues, all the ills that tend to plague us and reduce our quality of life as we age. No form of exercise directly combats all of them nearly as effectively as resistance training. Okay. And so that's that premise right there. That part of it is that resistance training, the form of exercise known as resistance training or strength training, I mean, studies now show, actually, in fact, the only study that's shown that any form of exercise stops or might even reverse Alzheimer's and dementia is resistance training, probably due to its insulin sensitizing effects. More muscle makes your body more sensitive.
Yeah, so while we don't know exactly why it's happening, you can't argue that it is happening.
That's right.
That it's slowing it down.
It is. And most forms of exercise improve your health and
in some way.
And should do that. But resistance training seems to be the most effective so far, according to studies, in that case. And I have some other explanations as to why. Look at bone loss, osteopenia, osteoporosis. No form of exercise is going to build your bones like resistance training, not even close. As long as you're putting, tension on the bone, you should get some beneficial effect. Right. But when you're building muscle anchors a bone, and you're going to strengthen your bones. Mobility, loss of mobility, which this is a big problem as you get older. What you find.
I suffer from it now. I'm suffering from lack of mobility.
Yeah, but your lack of mobility isn't going to cause you to break a bone and then get pneumonia and die.
Correct.
Right? This happens further along, and that's weakness. Weakness is when you have mobility issues, it's because you're not strong enough. And now strong is a general term, and we can get into more details as to exactly what I mean. But if you strengthen yourself properly, that defeats or slows down or even prevents loss of mobility, agility, that kind of stuff. Testosterone in men. No form of exercise reliably raises testosterone. By the way, it not only raises testosterone with men who have low testosterone, it raises testosterone with men who have moderate or even high testosterone. Right. It'll always raise your testosterone if done properly. In women, it's one of the most effective ways to balance their hormones, their progesterone, estrogen. Of course, I talked about insulin, sensitivity earlier. So all of the ills that happen with aging, and here's the problem. When an older person who's suffering from these issues goes to the doctor, and they say, look, what can I do? I have, obviously you told me I have some cognitive decline or I have osteopenia. The form of exercise that often gets recommended first is not resistance training. They almost never say, go lift weights, go do resistance training. It's almost always some form of cardiovascular activity, which is fine, it's better than nothing, but it pales in comparison to the best form of exercise, which is resistance training.
With regard to the impacts that you've just you've outlined
Absolutely.
There.
Now, of course, I want to be clear, I'm not saying other forms of exercise have no value. If you were to have the perfect routine, there would be a strength component, an endurance component, a flexibility component. But most people are, let's be honest, okay, you've trained people for a long time. The average person, if we're going to take the average person, and get them to work out consistently forever, you're looking at about 2 days a week. That's just the average. 2 days a week is what you can hope for, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But two days a week of good resistance training, the benefits are tremendously higher than 2 days a week of any other form of exercise. And so that's the case that I make in the book.
Right, yeah. So and 2 days is good. You can still get a really good result in just 2 days a week.
You can.
Right? 3 days a week tends to be better.
Yes, of course.
4 days a week improves upon that. As we get to 5, it could be questionable as how much additional result you're going to get, which again, a lot of people just don't get. And they think, well, some is good, more is obviously better, right?
No, it's true.
Should be 6 or 7 days a week then, and I'll get 6 or 7 times the result. So that's obviously very passionate about this, right? I mean, for a lot of reasons, right? And we've just kind of covered all that. So the book itself, is that what this is? Is this a passion project for you?
Well, so we got approached by Hachette, which is, they're a large publisher, and they approached us and said, hey, we'd like for you guys to write a book. So I was, it was going to be, it was obvious it was going to be me. I write all the content for Mind Pump. Mm-hmm. So if someone's going to write something, it's going to be me, right? So I said, I'm going to do this. And I went through the process of pitching them my idea because they had no idea. They just said, we want you guys to do. They saw that we had media footprint, and this is a strategy. This is a strategy now with publishers. They'll go find influencers or whatever, and they'll say, write a book because we know we have a guaranteed audience. So I pitched this idea. They loved it, and that's what this is. Now, this idea is one that I've wanted to write about forever. It just was the perfect time.
This is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So how about those people that are looking at it, that know who you are, right? That know about Mind Pump, they know about MAPS. Come on, Sal, isn't this just another iteration of MAPS programming?
Yeah.
Like, are you just nickel and diming me for the same stuff?
No, so here's what you'll get with this book, okay? What you're going to get is essentially, yes, you'll get some exercises, you'll get some recommendations on how to train your body. But really what you're going to get is me making the case for resistance training for everybody in a way that is effective. My goal was, there's a few goals I had with this. One, can I communicate to the average person?
Yeah, right? Who's it for?
Right. So can I get my aunt or my uncle or whatever, my mom, who could care less about touching a dumbbell or barbell?
Right.
Could I convince them that, hey, if you're going to work out and train your body, then this is the form of exercise you need to pick. So that's the person. I want to reach the unreachable. I want to reach that person and get them to exercise in a way that, because let's be honest, resistance training is still stigmatized. There's still the stereotype around it.
Still.
It is. I mean, look, if you're a man and you're in your 60s and you go to the doctor says you got to lose some weight, you have high blood pressure, and I tell the guy, hey, you should lift weights. I don't want to be a bodybuilder. I just need to lose some weight. Right? There's still that stigma that needs to get defeated, and so my goal is to destroy that stigma and really explain how resistance training really is again the best form of exercise for most people, especially for people who live in modern societies. My other goal was to communicate in a way to where I could arm fitness fanatics. So I'm a trainer, I love fitness, or I'm just a fitness fanatic. I work out. I've been talking to my family and friends about resistance training. I know that resistance training is a great form.
They don't want to listen to me.
Nobody wants to listen. Everybody thinks they're going to look like a bodybuilder if they work out, especially the women that I talk to. This book is going to arm you. It's going to provide you with the right way to communicate this message so that you can finally get those people to make those, or you could just give it to them as a gift. For trainers, this is a wonderful book for clients. A wonderful book for clients because
this reinforces what you're trying to take.
Yes, because you know this as a trainer. This is what you're saying to your clients every single day. And look, how many times have you had a client come to you with some crappy fitness fad or nutrition book and be like, this guy says I need to just eat green foods or whatever.
Here we go again.
Right. Books can be very effective sometimes. So this just gives you another tool as a trainer. Give it to a client. Say, hey, read this. They'll come back and be like, wow, okay, now I see what you're saying. This makes so much sense.
So just going back to the who, really, you're trying to make this all-inclusive.
Totally.
Right? It's not really, it's not geared for the bodybuilder. It's not geared for the person that wants to get jacked.
Right.
It's geared for the person that cares about their health and wellness, right? And is looking for some direction on how to have the biggest impact on that, right? While providing a little bit of an education, right? In some sense. So if that's the case, how do you structure the book, man? So if I'm reading the book, how's the book structured? Is it, science and then workouts and reps and sets and calculations of how much I need to use in order to get how did you guys structure it?
Yeah, no. So there's definitely science in the book because I want to back up a lot of my claims. So I do reference studies. So nowadays, people want to see that. They want to see where's the studies. So those are in there. But this is very conversational. It's very much how I would talk to a client. So it's you're going to read it. It's going to make sense. It's easy to understand. Good. It's going to resonate. And again, the idea is I'm going to start off by making the case, talking about the history of resistance training, why was it stigmatized, make the case for it, how it affects all the ills of modern life. I paint the context, right? So what does modern life look like? Well, we're sedentary as hell, but we're super busy. We have hyper palatable food surrounding us. I said earlier, we don't have a lot of time, but we need to do a form of exercise to help with all these calories that we're consuming. I don't move a lot anyway, so something needs to fortify and strengthen my body because I'm literally deteriorating because I sit, 15 hours a day, whether it's at my desk or on the couch or at the kitchen table.
Collectively.
Right. So knowing all that, if you do resistance training twice a week and you do it right, and then there's, of course, a large segment of the book to explain how to do it right. Absolutely. Resistance training is very misunderstood. Most exercise is misunderstood. I think there's this.
Despite how much we know, right, and how much is out there, how much is research out there, it's still misunderstood.
Absolutely.
It's not that we don't have enough information.
No, I'll give you one example. Okay, so I make the case for, and I learned this as a trainer. Rather than going to the gym to work out, go to the gym to practice. So what I mean by that is, let's say I want to work out my legs. So today I'm going to train my legs and I'm going to do squats and lunges and stiff-legged deadlifts, leg press, whatever. If I go with the mentality of working out my legs, what I'm really aiming for is, am I sweating? Am I sore? Is the legs burning? Do I hurt?
I love where you're going with this. Yep.
Now, here's the problem with that. All exercise, by the way, all movement there's skills. And you could do them well or you can do them poorly. If I go with the intention of just beating my legs up, I don't develop the good skills, I injure myself, and I actually lose effectiveness.
Right.
Now, if I go to the gym and instead of saying, I'm going to work out my legs, I say to myself, I'm going to practice squats, I'm going to practice lunges, I'm going to practice stiff-legged deadlifts, I'm going to practice the leg press. Well, now I'm focusing on the skill and the technique. I'm also training at a much more appropriate intensity, but I'm yielding far better results with far less risk.
It's not ego lifting. You're connected to what it is you're supposed to be doing,
and you get better at it. Right. I remember the day when the way I'm communicating it now really came to me. I was hiking up in the hills behind my house, and as I'm hiking, runners are passing me by. And as a trainer, I can't help but look at biomechanics, right? So people running by, I'm looking at their ankles and their back, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like pronating feet, and anterior pelvic tilt, and forward shoulder. Like I'm noticing all these areas where people are probably going to hurt themselves or hurting now as they're running. Like
we're freaks like that, right?
And they're just slugging along on the thing. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, and then a runner came by that looked perfect.
Like a gazelle.
Yeah, it just looked perfect. And I thought, what the problem is? There's two problems. One, people perceive running to be easy. So they wake up and or whatever, they say, I want to work out. Say, running's easy, I'll just go run. Okay, it's not. It's extremely complex. Although if we evolved to run, we stop running once we're 10,
right? And
so we forget that skill.
We don't play anymore.
We don't treat it like a skill, right? And people are treating it like a workout. They're not running to run better. They're running to tired
and burn calories
to get tired, right? And so the result of that is, and still to this day, running is one of the highest rates of injury.
Right, you get all kinds of. It's a mess.
Now, if people treated running like a skill and they practiced running, you wouldn't see this problem, and you'd see much more people running for longer distances and for longer periods of time. All exercise, this is a problem. Resistance training especially, it's a problem. These are skills. Just practice them. If the average person practiced resistance training, didn't worry about working out, but just practiced the skill of each exercise and got better at them, and as they got better, naturally they'll probably add more load, do it a little harder, we would get exceptional results. We get far better results with way less injuries as a result.
Than trying to get to the end.
That's it.
Just trying to get to the end.
So that's one component of kind of how one part of the book.
Yeah, I love the way you're putting it. Again, it's practice. You don't game time. I just take a football player, for example. This might be a poor analogy, but I don't think that it is. You don't go out on the practice field and practice at the same intensity, hit as hard, do the same things you would do in a game. You'd never you'd never survive.
No, if I can't throw if I don't know how to throw a football, a coach isn't going to be just throw it harder.
So you work through the mechanics, right? You work through the mechanics.
Yeah.
You take it
That's
easy,
right.
recover, so that when comes time for game time, you can elevate the intensity.
First, I have to learn how to throw the damn football well, and I have to practice
block
it well
and tackle
before I can throw it as hard as I can.
Yeah, block and tackle, right?
That's it.
So, you've just kind of outlined some things that I find are very different than most, say, books that you may be titled in this way, right? Or, about resistance training. Generally, it's kind of an encyclopedia of here's how you work out, here's how you do an exercise, and so forth. And what you're saying is that might be part of it, but there's so much you want to know in order to do those things correctly, and you just kind of outlined the practice piece. Anything else that you've done within the book or outside of the book or working on with outside of the book to support the user or the reader that's different than other books that may be in the same genre?
Right. Well, so the book itself has in the back towards the end, I give workouts and stuff so people have something that they could take and apply. We also have a website that's going to be connected to the book, so you can click on it and go and watch someone demonstrating the exercises, which I think is different. I think one of the bigger differences is just how I communicate certain things. Nutrition, I talk about nutrition in there.
That's going to be my next question.
Which, and the way I communicate nutrition is vastly different than what you'll find in any, nutrition book. And I do talk about the mechanics of fat loss and that kind of stuff. But really, I talk about how to develop the behaviors that lead to long-term success when it comes to nutrition. So, and these are things I've talked about on the podcast, coming from a place of self-care rather than self-hate. So rather than saying, I hate my body, I'm fat, I'm going to eat a certain way, you say, I love my body, I want to take care of it, I'm going to eat a certain way. It's much, much different in terms of how it feels. You don't feel like you're restrictive. On one side, you don't rebel at the end of it because you're tyrannizing yourself because you hate yourself. Very, very different. The way I communicate how to create barriers between you and foods that tend to trigger you, for example, in order to bring awareness around, what's happening. A lot of the ways that we eat when we have dysfunctional eating patterns tend to be impulsive. Well, a good way the first step to stopping that is to interrupt the process and allow a little bit of space for awareness. You don't even have to try to become aware. Just give yourself some space. So one example would be, let's say chocolate is just, oh man, chocolate's so hard for me. I eat so much of it. It's just insane. And I'd say to my client, all right, here's the deal. You can eat chocolate. So I'm not going to say don't eat chocolate. Just don't have it in the house.
Right.
If you want it, you got to drive to the store and get yourself a single serving of it.
You have to do work.
That's it. Just space.
Right.
It's just enough. I could even say, look, give it to your neighbor down the street. Like just enough space for you to think and wait for a second and stop that in that pattern, interrupt that pattern. And it works wonders. As trainers, you really start to figure this out. You figure out that you pressure the behaviors, not the mechanics. The mechanics, if I can't fix the behaviors, the mechanics are going to fail every single time. You can count calories all day long, right. But if your behaviors sabotage you, well, you're going to fail.
Right.
It's not going to succeed. So I talk about that as well.
Creating awareness.
That's right.
And that being the most important step.
Absolutely.
In whatever you're doing with your nutrition, whatever diet you choose, however direction you want to go, let's get a good level of understanding of where we are right now and the things that we're doing that are helping versus potentially hurting us.
Absolutely.
And it's not about restriction. And again, it's about self-care. And I know that's the place that you've always come from. That's where Mind Pump comes from as a whole, which is do this because you love yourself, not because you hate yourself.
It's a very different conversation, I tell you. It's like, it's the difference between, saying I can't have that cookie and saying I don't want that cookie. Now, I know someone listening might be thinking,
easier said than done.
Well, not just that, but they might think, but I do want that cookie. Mm-hmm. And I'll challenge them and say, do you really? Now, acknowledging that you'll enjoy that cookie is not the same thing. Mm-hmm. Look, it's like being married for 20 years and then you see an attractive person across the street. You can admire them and look at them and say, wow, that person's hot.
Yeah.
But do you want to sabotage your marriage and actually go...
Two different things.
So I can look at that cookie and I can say to myself, oh yeah, I know that'll taste good. That looks amazing. I don't want it though. I want to take care of myself. Or when you're coming from that place, maybe I do want that cookie because right now Scott made it for me, homemade, and I haven't had his homemade cookies in years, and we're doing the cookie.
We're doing the cookie.
We're having a good time and we're communicating. And right now, that's maybe not good for me physically, but maybe it is emotionally.
Yeah, and for for the moment, right? To enjoy the moment and the things that are, and those important. But you're aware of that.
That's right. And so what you develop through that is a natural balance, and this is what people are missing, because what it tends to look like with diets is, I go through this period of I hate myself. That's it. I'm gonna, tyrannize myself.
The pendulum,
and I'm gonna just be super strict. And then finally, nobody wants to be tyrannized, even if especially if you're tyrannizing your own self. And at some point, you say, you know what? I just want to live my life. How many times have you had people tell you that?
Right.
What happened? Why'd you stop working out? I just want to enjoy my life. As if being fit and healthy isn't enjoying your life. So a lot of it is up here. A lot of it is how we're approaching
it. Mindset.
That's right.
Total mindset. Yeah. And so you are addressing the nutrition component in this.
Absolutely.
Right. And probably be remiss. And you said this earlier, like if your body doesn't want to build muscle, good luck building muscle.
That's right.
If it's not set up properly to build muscle, all the resistance training you're doing that may be outlined in the book, you may or may not get any benefit from it.
That's right. At the end I have checklists where we go through stress, and we go through, spiritual practice, and we go through, gut health and all these things where you could check these things off to see kind of where you rank, because I knew it would not be complete to communicate resistance training if I wasn't communicating all the other components.
Yeah, biofeedback mechanisms,
all of it,
and things like that. So let's go back to the cover,
okay.
Right? And you see. Again, there's maybe some publisher speak there, but let's talk about the cardio component.
Yeah.
Because this is all about resistance training,
right.
And wherever it's coming from, whether it's coming from the healthcare industry, or whether it's coming from the media, or whether it's coming from the fitness industry, cardio.
Yeah.
And people, particularly now, they've been sitting, right? They've been, never before has activity been taken away from them like it has been. And it's not that you couldn't be active,
right.
But it's definitely been different. There's some fear out there, and people are trying to return, and they're feeling unhealthy, right? They put on some weight, right? They're definitely deconditioned. They're not feeling great about that. They know they need to take some steps. Unfortunately, what we see it here at Red Dot all the time, is people wanting to jump into the hardest thing first. They want to get straight into the calorie burning, right? They want to jump right into HIIT training, or they go, I need to do cardio. So much so, or they've been involved in other programs, or they've had some type of, I'm going to use air quotes here, success, which generally means weight loss, right? With some type of cardio programming, whether it's coming at them from, another boutique thing, like, let's throw it out there, like an Orange Theory, a spinning, like a cycle bar, something like that. And they're conditioned, like, I need to do this, and so they're even coming to our classes, and most of the group classes here, and we do have group classes here at Red Dot. We keep them; they're all rooted in strength training, right? We have HIIT training on the schedule, but it's on there 2 times a week, right? But people want to jump into this stuff, and they want to do it right now. And it's not that the cardiovascular activity is unhealthy. But when you look at the bigger scheme of things, and you've already outlined like all the things that resistance training can do for you in terms of bone density, hormone, regulation, building muscle to increase your metabolism. Can we just talk about the cardio piece and why people should calm down on this? Yeah,
so I go after cardio on the cover and in the book because it's the first form of exercise that people are either sold or they pick when they're trying to, especially lose weight, right? So weight loss is the number one goal that people have by far. And cardio exercise is the first form of exercise. Oh, I need to lose weight. I'm going to go
shove down their
running. I'm going to go cycling. I'm going to go swimming, or I'm going to hop on an elliptical or treadmill or whatever. So I go after it pretty hard. And here's why. We've been following the wrong paradigm in fitness for a long time. And the paradigm goes like this. Weight loss happens from an energy imbalance. So I have to take in less calories than I burn. So if I burn more calories than I take in, then my body is going to search for those calories, that energy, from other sources, and hopefully body fat or my body.
To power the activity.
Right, so it burns body fat, or I lose weight. So less calories than I burn, or burn more calories than I take in. And so the paradigm has been, let me pick the form of exercise that burns the most calories, okay? And I can understand the logic.
Conventional wisdom, right? That's a good idea.
I can understand the logic. Here's the problem. The real benefits of exercise come from the way that it tells your body to adapt. Not the calorie burn, but rather what adaptations occur in the body that this exercise is eliciting, okay? And let's look at those adaptations. Are those adaptations beneficial for what I'm looking to accomplish. Now, here's the problem with cardiovascular activity. It is true that doing cardio burns more calories than doing any other form of exercise. Time versus time, an hour of cardio will burn 2 or 3 times more calories than an hour of resistance training. This is true, but the magic is in the adaptation, okay? Cardiovascular activity requires your body to build a lot of endurance. It does not require a lot of strength. Also, it burns a lot of calories while you're performing it. So what your body's trying to do, when your body adapts, what it's trying to do is it's trying to be better at whatever you're throwing at it.
Increased efficiency.
Right. So if I go out in the sun and the sun hits my skin and the UV rays damage it a little bit, my body aims at becoming better at being in the sun, and so my skin will darken. Right. This happens all the time. Your body's constantly adapting. As my body tries to get better at cardio, here's what it's trying to do. 1, we need a lot of endurance. We don't need a lot of strength. And we're burning a lot of calories while we're doing this. Let's become a endurance weak machine that is very efficient with calories. So here's what ends up happening. Studies are very clear on this, and we see this in gyms all the time.
Right.
Losing weight through cardio, you lose as much muscle as you lose body fat, because what your body's trying to do is it doesn't need much strength anyway. It needs
to perform the exercise.
It doesn't. It just needs endurance, and you don't need a lot of a lot of muscle for endurance. In fact, you look at the top marathon runners in the world, and they have very
extraordinarily,
very little muscle,
nearly frail.
Right. They have very, very little muscle. So I don't need a lot of strength. I need endurance. And we want to become efficient with all these calories. We're burning too many calories. Remember, your body evolved in an environment where food was scarce and we were active all day. And so the body learned how to become very efficient. So you reduce your muscle, slow your metabolism down. You're not burning as many calories on your own. By the way, all the 1 hour cardio you do, it pales in comparison to the amount of calories your body burns the rest of the day with your metabolism.
Right.
Okay. So now what ends up happening is you get a slower metabolism. You lose as much muscle as you do fat, which, by the way, means you've gone nowhere. So what this literally means is if you lose 10 pounds, 5 is fat, 5 is muscle, you have the same body fat percentage. Remember, body fat percentage is a percentage of your overall body weight. So you're just a smaller version, weaker version of yourself.
Still the same fat level.
Right, with a slower metabolism. So here's what it looks like when you use cardio as a means to lose weight. You lose weight real fast at first, plateau real hard, that's it. It's not going anymore.
So then what?
And then eventually you got to add more cardio or cut your calories even more, get a little bit more, plateau again. At some point you're stuck and you're like, what do I do? I hate this, I don't want to do this anymore. You stop. Well, now the rebound is even worse. Now you're left with a slower metabolism and you're going to put on even more body fat that you had before. And this is the problem. This is why that exercise paradigm, the way that we've been following for so long, has failed.
It's failing people.
Totally failed. Now here's the difference with resistance training. Resistance training elicits adaptations that are beneficial, especially in the context of modern life.
Right.
What am I asking my body to do with resistance training? Become stronger. I'm telling my body to become stronger. What do I need? What does my body need for more strength? More muscle. Does resistance training burn a lot of calories while you're doing it? No. Resistance training burns very little calories while you do it. It's one of the least calorie burning forms of exercise when you compare it to other
While you're doing it. So if you're measuring your resistance training workout.
No, but because of that, my body's like, I don't need to be very efficient. We need more muscle. So here we go. Let's build some muscle, which, by the way, requires higher levels of testosterone and more balanced hormones. So what ends up happening is I speed up my metabolism.
The other 23 hours of the day.
That's right. Every single day, day in and day out. So now, instead of having to do an hour of cardio a day to burn 400 calories, my body's burning 400 calories extra on its own. No additional exercise needed. So here's what fat loss or weight loss looks like with resistance training. Yeah. Number one, the fat you lose is, the weight you lose is fat. You don't lose any muscle, and oftentimes you simultaneously gain a little bit of muscle.
As long as you're nourishing the body correctly, right? You're recovering properly. And
of
all
course.
Things, right?
You have to eat right. You have to have good sleep, all those things.
But even still, even if those aren't great, you could still put on muscle and still increase your metabolism.
Especially when you first start.
And lose fat. Yeah.
Right. So now I've lost 10 pounds of body fat, but I've actually gained 3 pounds of muscle. Not only did I lose that fat, but I'm even leaner because I have extra muscle. By the way, 3 pounds of muscle is not going to make me bigger. I'm just going to feel more firm.
Right.
And I have a faster metabolism. So now I'm set up for real success in the future. What does weight loss look like with resistance training? It's a snowball effect. It starts off slow, but then it accelerates. And then you get to the point where your metabolism is roaring.
It's in the tank.
And this is the comment. And tell me you haven't heard this a million times from clients. This is maybe, 5-6 months into it, and they come to you and they're like, Scott, I'm eating a lot. I'm getting leaner. This doesn't make any sense. Right. Why am I getting leaner? I'm like, I'm eating more than I ever did before. Your metabolism is on fire.
Right. Or I'm eating more than I've ever eaten before, and I'm starving.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is even better. Good.
Yes. That's
Congratulations.
A sign things are turned on. So if we shift the paradigm from burn as many calories as you can to create this energy balance to teach your body how to burn more calories to create this energy imbalance, we'll find success.
Resistance training revolution.
Yeah.
There you go. Those are the answers. So I think in the end, here's my takeaway from the book as a coach, right?
Okay.
And as a fitness industry guy, just listening to all the things that you just said, that I think when I dig into this, for me, there's not going to be a lot of profound, newfound knowledge, right? What I'm going to get, though, is a lesson in how to communicate this more effectively to my client, my family, the person standing in front of me, or, again, as the fitness gym owner. Anywhere you go socially, you're known as the fitness gym owner, and inevitably every conversation starts and ends with, fitness conversation and nutrition conversation. This is a way for me maybe to get my point across.
I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this podcast right now and the way I'm saying things, and yet it's resonating and it's sparking you and you're going, oh my God, yes, then you'll love this book. Right. So although the information in there is what you probably already know, the way it's said is it's gonna blow you away. So you are gonna have those epiphanies, but from that standpoint. And again, like I said, it's gonna arm you well to communicate this to other people you care about.
Awesome. We definitely need more of this type of conversation to be happening out there, clearly, so that we get past the cardio thing and get over there. I'm gonna get jacked if I pick up weights kind of thing. Right. Dude, so another project, it's not in the books, and no pun intended there. There's a lot of work that needs to get done now to get the book out there and whatever else. But I know you, and we've already talked about this. What other projects you working on? Before we got started today, we were talking about, well, you're a new dad again, right? You're dad 3 times now, right? So you got that project. Any other projects we're working on in the back end that you can tell us about?
From a business standpoint, we've now have 6 years under our belt of just putting out a ton of content. So you've talked about the podcast. There's 1,500 episodes. We have YouTube videos on 2 different channels, tons of them.
Right.
Lots of written content. We put out blogs every single week. I've written probably 30% of them, but we have other writers that write for us. So we have blogs that are out. We have now advertising that goes out. We've done this long enough now to where now we're in a position where we can run big online advertising campaigns to to people who don't know who Mind Pump is. So like before, it's like you had to listen to the podcast, you get it, and now you can read our stuff and you'll get our programs or whatever, and it makes sense. But if you never heard of us and we try to get people to read our stuff, it's like whatever. Now we're at the point now where enough people have seen us and start to recognize us, and we have so much content. Now we're putting together big cold traffic ad campaigns where we'll put ads out on Google or ads out, and we're starting to play in that big water or whatever they call it, blue water or whatever, and it's starting to pay off.
That's fascinating.
And so the business is probably going to grow exponentially as a result, because now we're able to reach more people that would than listen to the podcast. Now I do hope that they come and do listen to the podcast. So we've got some big campaigns that we're working on. I can't divulge them yet, but big campaigns that we're working on that are very complex with lots of written content, lots of ways people are gonna come in, read about our stuff, and
consume it,
and consume it, and hopefully get some of our products. So there's that's going on. Also, last year we really started. We set up a separate company to do investments. So we have a Mind Pump Investments company. And really the goal is, and this is, again, it's just I feel so blessed to work with people like this, but we're all older guys. And so I think that there comes a certain level of wisdom when you get past a certain age to where we're sitting around and we're saying, you know what? Let's just imagine Mind Pump disappears in 5 years.
Right, what happens?
Because who knows? Who knows?
What's the exit strategy?
Yeah, right now things are doing great or whatever, but with the way things are with media, one day hero, next day zero. So let's set ourselves up well so that we're taken care of if we need to pull the plug or if we get canceled for saying the wrong thing or whatever.
Right.
Which, that's always a possibility.
It's a risk, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
In today's day and age.
Absolutely. So so that's always on our mind. So we're constantly talking about our investments, and we're in the process of getting properties and trying to build something for ourselves that'll last much longer than the business that we have.
Smart entrepreneurs, you young trainers out there, think about that. Because you can't do training forever.
No,
you gotta. You can.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
But you'll have to get another job when you're done with that.
Here's what I'll say to the fitness people, because I know what I said about resistance training made sense. So obviously, resistance training is training your body to burn more calories on its own. Okay, this is what you do with your money. You'll make money. Now find ways to get your money to make money for you. That's the key. If you can do that, then you're going to set yourself up really well. If you can't do that, you'll be working for every dollar you make the rest of your life.
Forever, yeah. So the last sort of question here, and there's some recent current events that just happened. Apple just came out the other day with some big announcements about what's happening on the podcast platform there. And for those that may not be familiar with how that all works or whatever, basically, in a nutshell, Apple just made it very, very easy for anybody with a podcast to essentially monetize it. And that doesn't mean you can just charge for your podcast and you're going to be successful with it. But they've really made it simple for those that have a podcast to make money on subscriptions and downloads and so forth without having to have a sponsor, without having to have, sponsorship money or advertising dollars or anything like that. With that's out there, and Mind Pump's done a lot of everything you do in terms of that content's always been free. Are things going to change for Mind Pump listeners or Mind Pump fans with in light of this sort of new announcement and platform, kind of where we start to see things going?
No, we're so good with what we're doing. We're crushing. We have no plans on changing anything. But I do like that they're doing this. I think it sounds like, I don't know too many details, but it sounds like it's going to give a lot of newer people opportunities to monetize aside from the traditional way, which is like try to sell your own product and getting sponsored, which would be very, very challenging. The space of podcasting has been growing exponentially. It still hasn't overtaken radio.
Right.
It hasn't even come close yet, but it will. It will at some point. It's a wonderful medium. It's going to be as big as talk radio ever was, which is massive. We have people who are representative of podcasting space, which currently get more media attention than anybody else in that sense. Joe Rogan. I know Joe Rogan's audience is massive, but it's still wide open. 5 to 10 years from now, I don't know what it's going to look like. It might be very difficult. You might have networks, and I can see. I look to the video stuff to see where the future of the audio stuff is going. So the video stuff, it looks like it's turning into networks with your Hulu and your YouTube and Netflix and Amazon Prime. They're developing their own content.
Their own channels, that kind of stuff. Podcasting space is probably a good 5 years behind that. So I could foresee Apple having its own audio content, and Spotify its own content. That's what it's doing.
It is, and I love that. I think that's beautiful. Yeah. I think it's wonderful. There's going to be great competition, but I think now's a good time to get in.
Yeah, cool. So, hey, listen, if people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, find out more about Sal, where do they go?
So Mind Pump is the podcast. Yep. You can go on our website, mindpumpmedia.com. On Instagram, I'm Mind Pump Sal. So those are the place. And if you want to check out the book.
What about the book?
The ResistanceTrainingRevolution.com. So you just go there and
I can buy it there?
You'll get an email with a discount to buy it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. You heard it. You get a discount and access to the other stuff that you talked about, right?
Yes.
Like the videos and things like that.
Yeah, so when you sign up for the book, you'll get access to, or when you get the book, you'll have access to a website that has just exercise demos, so you can watch video on how to do the movements.
Cool, but it's a good little insight to kind of what's going on and what you might find in the book when you finally get it.
Yeah.
Sal, always amazing sitting down with you, man. Again, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Yeah,
it was super great having you, and I'm convinced. I know that the book is going to be very, very valuable to a lot of people. But just the bit of time that you spent with me today, I'm sure people take away some pretty good nuggets.
Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah. We love you. We love what you're doing. So, and I'm glad to see you doing this. I think this is natural for you.
I'm excited. It's a new journey and a new project, and yeah, man, I appreciate the support and the confidence. Cheers, bud.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Iron Sights. If you enjoyed our conversation, you can support our mission by hitting the subscribe button, leaving a review, and sharing the podcast with a friend. I'll see you on the next episode.